The Grumman F11 Tiger was a supersonic, single-seat, carrier-based United States Navy fighter aircraft that saw service in the 1950s and 60s. It had a short-lived career, only 4 years, as its performance was found to be inadequate compared to other aircraft that had entered or were entering service. Despite this, the striking looks of the F-11 allowed it to earn fame in the Blue Angels Flight Demonstration Squadron between 1957 and 1968. Its addition into War Thunder is welcomed by most players who enjoy the newer Cold War-era vehicles, although the manner of acquiring said aircraft has probably contributed to a general rise in blood pressure for most of the player base. Infuriating events and the mass extinction of server hamsters aside, we'll take a look at the F-11 in this quick review. I'll even throw in some gameplay footage to demonstrate its handling and combat effectiveness. It sits at a battle rating of 9.0 across all game modes, which is hilariously generous considering it's a supersonic fighter and will no doubt result into some truly gratuitous seal clubbing when down-tiered to an 8.0 game in arcade or realistic. In Simulator Enduring Confrontation, it will of course sit in the EC6 bracket, which means it will fight vehicles ranging in BR from 8.0 all the way to 10.3, so you will either be the clubber or the clubbee. And if you do get clubbed, it's a 10-minute respawn timer, and a repair cost of 68,000 Silver Lions. Payload-wise, your options are fairly decent once you've gone through the grind to unlock them and then spend a small fortune in Silver Lions to equip them. The F-11 can be equipped with 500 pound or 1000 pound unguided bombs. It can be equipped with up to 52 Mighty Mouse rockets for all of your spamming needs, and it also has the option to be fitted out with AIM-9Bs. Though they aren't the best anti-air missiles, you do get 4 of them. On top of this, the F-11 has 4 nose-mounted Browning Colt Mark 12 20mm cannons with 500 rounds of ammunition between them. The varied payload options give the F-11 excellent versatility, particularly for ground battles and simulator battles. Its high-velocity guns and air-to-air missiles make it a capable dogfighter, and if you find yourself in a game where you're closer to the bottom of the food chain rather than the top, you can switch to ground attack and still feel vaguely useful. Just don't get shot down. Speaking of being shot down, the F-11 is noted as being the first jet aircraft to shoot itself more or less out of the sky. On September 21st, 1956, Grumman test pilot Tom Attridge shot himself down in a graphic demonstration of 2 objects occupying the wrong place at the same time, one being a Grumman F11F-1 Tiger, the other a swarm of its own bullets. It happened on the second run of test firing the 4 20mm cannons at Mach 1 speeds. At 20,000 feet, Attridge entered a shallow dive of 20 degrees, accelerating an afterburner, and at 13,000 feet pulled the trigger for a 4-second burst, then another to empty the belts. During the firing run, the F-11F continued its descent, and upon arriving at 7,000 feet, the armor glass windshield was struck, but not penetrated, by an object. Attridge nursed the stricken F-11 back to terra firma, albeit putting the jet down amongst some trees about a mile from the runway, carrying away the aircraft's right wing in the process, as tends to happen when striking delicate multi-million-dollar hardware against hardened objects at speed. Examination of the F-11 established there were 3 hits, including one to the engine intake, and a battered 20mm projectile was found in the first compressor stage. In a nutshell, the angle of firing, the descent of the aircraft, projectile velocity decay, and realignment of the line of flight meant Attridge had flown below the trajectory of his bullets, and 11 seconds later after firing them, he became unhappily reunited with them. As amusing as the story is, I imagine it would have been pant-shittingly terrifying for Attridge at the time, but at least he now had a good story to tell at Christmas dinners. That slice of history aside, I should probably get back to actually talking about the F-11 in War Thunder. Performance-wise, the F-11 can be seen as very forgiving, especially at lower speeds, where other supersonic aircraft such as the F-100 can be terrifyingly unwieldy. It is of course in your best interest to maintain your speed as much as possible if you want a life expectancy greater than a few fleeting moments of terror and pain. A few points of caution should be made though. The F11 has no takeoff or combat flaps, only landing flaps, and it needs a decent length of runway to safely land. It is also a very poor turner and loses a lot of speed in those turns, so definitely don't do what I did here and engage in LA-15 like a drunk lemming. It's only going to end expensively. The F11 is also known to rip its wings, sometimes at high speeds, though I myself have yet to experience this unhappy accident, as I usually get airfield strafed or swatted out of the sky by a MiG-21 before I've had more than 5 minutes of flight time. Like most supersonic jets, your best tactic is to gain as much altitude as possible and pick your battles. Due to the aircraft's poor turning ability, boom and zoom is the way to go. Do not get dragged into a high-speed dogfight. Its guns are excellent at blasting your opponents out of the sky, but the very busy-looking gimbaled crosshairs can often make aiming a frustrating affair, as it's sometimes impossible to see your traces through them. However, with practice, caution, and a keen sense of when, where, and how to strike, the F11 will certainly be able to clip the wings of an aircraft far above its weight if given the chance. To conclude, the F11 is a decent aircraft that sits snugly in the overcompressed regions of top tier. Its weapon loadout is competitive against those of similar battle ratings, and well, it's quite the sexy plane. However, Gaijin's decision to increase the repair cost on day of release to over 60,000 Silver Lions spaded, and the sardine-like compression of top tier means it's dead on fucking arrival.